We've known each other a long time. You never had this much trouble. You gonna make it through this, Dante?
What am I doing wasting my time here? He's got this.
I'm leaving. I suggest you do not fall behind.
About that, V. There might be a small chance we will. Hi, and welcome to this week's installment of Snef torments himself for your amusement. This time around, we're due for another Devil May Cry 5 challenge, and for the first time, we will be throwing Nero into the mix, attempting to beat all of his missions using only Devil Breakers. This is of course out of the kindness of my own heart, because I want to show you something fresh, and not because Dante got his driver's license revoked for reckless endangerment of farm animals. So I promise, no Cavalier this time. Before we throw ourselves into the meat grinder, I'd like to give you a brief outline of this challenge and its rules, and thankfully it's pretty straightforward. The basic gist of it is that I'm only allowed to damage or crowd control enemies, using Nero's assortment of Devil Breakers. This includes both the base game variants and the DLC options. This means I'm not allowed to use Red Queen or Blue Rose, obviously, but neither am I allowed to use Nero's Summoned Swords, his Bringer Knuckles, nor his Buster moves. Using Snatch to bring enemies to me is not allowed either, but using it to pull myself towards heavier enemies is fair game, as it doesn't impact them in any way. Though I will allow the fuck you version of its double trigger activation.
Don't fuck with me!
Mostly because I don't want to restart every time I accidentally use it without tilting the left stick. And drop kicking is fine too, I guess. As per tradition, we will of course be maximizing my suffering by playing on a Dante Must Die difficulty. So, what are Devil Breakers? I hear some of you asking. Devil Breakers are mechanical arms Nero can use to fill up the empty space right here with something a bit more handy. There are 8 different Devil Breakers in the game, 13 if you include the DLC breakers I mentioned before, each of which having different strengths and weaknesses. Nero can carry up to 8 of these bad boys at the same time, with the caveat that we can't switch freely between them, as we can with Dante's weapons, for example. This means we have to break one to switch to the next. Making Devil Breakers a finite resource, we can only replenish by either finding some lying around, or by visiting a shop.
There's no such thing as too prepared.
Something every Devil Breaker has in common is that they are very frail, as Nico decided to construct them out of soggy McDonald's boxes. This means that getting hit while using them will cause them to break, forcing us to switch to the next one in our stock. Getting hit is not the only way we can swap breakers though. The move Breakaway causes Nero to sacrifice his current breaker in exchange for a brief moment of invulnerability and a bit of damage. The final way we can break our breakers is by using breakage moves. Also, breakage? I'm just gonna call them breakage moves instead. These attacks can be used by charging the breaker for a few seconds, generally with very powerful effects. This is the most graceful way to swap breakers, as we can at least trade them for something useful. Instead of going over every Devil Breaker right now, I'll instead look to give each one a brief introduction and explanation as they appear in the challenge. Though there is one elephant in the room, and a tomboy in the corner, that I'd like to address right away. These two in particular are interesting in the sense that they exist to modify Nero's existing toolkit. Buster Arm causes Nero's Buster moves to become a lot stronger, with the caveat of leaving Nero more vulnerable as he uses them, while Tomboy changes the Red Queen's and Blue Rose's moves while it's activated. I'm sure you can kind of see how this goes against the spirit of the challenge. On the other hand, I think it's a bit sad to leave these two out completely, as I want to show off as many breakers as I can. So as a compromise, I'll be allowing both Buster Arm and Tomboy, but only for their breakage moves. That way, we would still be able to see what makes these breakers unique, without the run devolving into Buster spam. So, can we beat Dante Must Die using only Devil Breakers? Let's find out. Kicking things off with a prologue, we're tasked donating our dear one-trick pony friend Dante, with beating some sense into Urizen. But first, we have a couple of regular encounters to take care of. The prologue is very short, but it still manages to introduce us to 4 out of the 8 base game Devil Breakers. First up is Punchline, which lets us send out our arm as a homing missile attack. But more importantly, we can hold the style button again to recall the arm, letting us ride it. I love this game, dude. The amount of time you can ride Punchline depends on your current style rank, which I completely forget about, causing it to explode without doing much of anything. Next up is Overture. Overture is a bit more simple than Punchline, just sending out a jolt of electricity in front of Nero. But it packs way more of a punch. Because of its straightforwardness, as well as its damage output, Overture is the best generalist Devil Breaker in the game, and we'll be seeing it a lot in this challenge. Despite being easy to use, I still find a way to mess up about half of my attacks using it, Impressive, I know. A rogue Queen and Pusa shows up, after which it's immediately time to say bye-bye to Overture and hello to Rawhide. Rawhide is a devil breaker that specializes in... Okay, goodbye Rawhide. Man, this is not a good showing so far. At least this is a good time to explain Tomboy's breakage move. This move is very similar to just using Tomboy normally, but it allows us to deal more damage, and taking damage does not cost the devil breaker to, you know, break. Instead, the breaker will self-destruct on its own after about 15 seconds. Next in line is Gerbera. This devil breaker specializes in aerial mobility, giving us an extra dash if we press the style button while moving. Using it while standing still causes Nero to just blow some air in front of him. This is about as impressive as it sounds, dealing pitiful damage. When playing normally, Gerbera is very useful, as you can use it to reposition quickly, but for our purposes it simply can't keep up with the damage output that low, meaning we have to use its breakage move to destroy it immediately. After swatting it 19 times, this big ass bug finally decides to call it a day, after which it's time to face the first boss of this challenge, Urizen.
I'm bagging this bitch.
Wait, what the fuck? I'm so sorry guys, I promised you it wouldn't be another Cavalier video. Anyway, the first Urizen fight is unique in a way that we don't actually need to kill him here to finish the mission. Instead, the fight ends when either we or Urizen dies. And I think you can imagine who gets humbled here first. On the bright side, we at least survive for longer than 14 seconds this time, so this gotta be a new record or something. But it does unfortunately bring our death count up to 1, as we head to the next mission. After watching a bomb-ass cutscene or two, we find ourselves standing on top of a bridge that looks like it was taken straight out of London. This means we have to get out of here quickly, of course. Now is the perfect time to explain what Rawhide does, for real this time. Essentially, Rawhide turns Nero's right arm into a whip thing, dealing damage around us. It also lets Snatch grab heavier enemies. But since we're not allowed to use it, it doesn't really matter. It does deal some decent damage at least, but not to the tune of Overture. What it does have is probably the best move to jump cancel out of all the devil breakers. Rawhide's aerial attack strikes in a circle around Nero, and gives us a slight bit of elevation when using it, meaning we can bring multiple enemies with us into the air, where we are relatively safe from counterattacks. For the record, you shouldn't use it like I'm using it here. Instead, you should let the second hit of the attack go off before you press jump. The timing is a bit tighter when doing it this way, but it deals more damage. Something else to note is that you don't really have to fight any of the enemies in this level, since you can just sprint over to the boss immediately, but I decide to do it anyway. Because why not, I guess. The boss of this mission is a lovely houseplant, with an acquired taste for human blood. This is by far the easiest boss in the entire game, as it is essentially just a bunch of Glyphoth tentacles with more health. Because of this, I don't take things all too seriously, just spamming every breakage move I have. In total, we get to witness 3 new breakage moves here. Rawhide's breakage move is called Loop the Loop. What is this name, dude? This is essentially just a stronger version of its regular attack, which sucks nearby enemies in, dealing some decent damage. Not to bosses though. Overture's breakage move, on the other hand, deals major single target damage, which is perfect for boss fights. Exploder, as it's aptly named, lets us stick our arm into a nearby enemy, placing a time bomb on them that explodes after a set amount of time. We can trigger the explosion early using some other attacks, which is most commonly another Exploder explosion, in our case. Next up is Punchline's breakage move, Boost Knuckle, which I immediately whiff, hitting the Hellantenor instead. What this attack does is send an enemy high up into the air, where the breaker proceeds to explode, dealing a considerable amount of damage. It does have a massive wind-up though, which we need to keep in mind. It's at this point I realized that immediately blowing all of my breakers may not have been the best of ideas, as we were left with a single Overture when the plant has about 40% of its HP left. Fortunately, using some aerial battery attacks, we bring the boss down to lethal ranges, finishing the fight with a stylish dance-off. Please don't ruin this for me. Gotta get... Come on, man. Mission 2 is what I would consider to be the first real mission of the game, being significantly longer than the previous 2 were, containing a total of 4 mandatory encounters, as well as a boss fight at the end. We start the first encounter off with Gerbera again. At this point in the challenge, I'm still limit testing the breakers a bit, trying to see what sticks, and what really doesn't. Like I mentioned before, Gerber's damage output is not up to par for what we need in a Devil Breaker, at least not for now. Realizing this, I just end up breaking it instead, using its aerial breakage move, Petal Ray. Petal Ray sends out a bunch of lasers in front of Nero, which bounce against any surfaces they hit. This doesn't look particularly impressive here, but it can wreak a lot of havoc in smaller rooms. We use Overture for a sweet few seconds before getting hit like a moron again. After which we're introduced to yet another Devil Breaker, Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter is a drill that specializes in breaking enemy armors and guards, which is a perfect match for the Death Sisters. Its breakage move, Drill Master, is essentially just a big version of its normal attack, as I so kindly demonstrate for us here. The second encounter is pretty much the same as the first one, except there are more scissors around. The Volcano presents a perfect opportunity for me to explain what is probably the most powerful strategy we have available to us, the battery permastun. If we use battery when we're close to an enemy that has been knocked down, Nero will use the attack straight down, launching the enemy straight up in the process. We can then repeat this cycle infinitely, so long as the enemy gets launched by the attack. This pretty much works against any enemy that isn't considered heavy, which I'll attempt to take full advantage of. You know, Overture is very good and all, but it's never ballin', you know what I'm saying? Am I right or am I right, fellas? It's never ballin'. I've never seen it ball either. What is Yo, wait a minute. Oh my god, it's ball. Nero, when Kyrie said make it bounce, I don't think this is what she meant. Sorry. Nero may be scoring 3-pointers all day, but this combo is not as useful as it looks. You see, dear viewer, Overture needs to do something called recharge. You can still use battery while it's recharging, but it deals a lot less damage. So while this is also a permastun combo on some enemies, most of the time it's more effort than it's worth. The third mandatory encounter is not too much for the world. Yes, this is the third one. The last fight was an optional encounter I wandered into in Baby's first labyrinth. Don't judge me. But just because it's not too much for the world, doesn't mean it's not too much for me. After dribbling a little bit using this Hurricane, I waste a perfectly good Overture by using battery for no reason whatsoever. This in turn forces me to expend another breaker, as the one up next is Tomboy. And I guess all good things come in free, as I accidentally use Red Queen to chop this guy up as the literal last thing I do. This is the first, but certainly not last, rule break of this run. You might think that pressing checkpoint here will bring us back to the previous checkpoint, with all the Devil Breakers we had equipped when we passed it. I agree with you, but Capcom doesn't. For some reason, the game replenishes all of our resources except for our breakers. This is a very punishing mechanic for what we're doing right now, but we have no choice but to deal with it, and simply hope it doesn't fuck us over too much. This time we managed to not break any rules, but we did lose a precious arm in the process, leaving us with a single Overture for the next fight. You don't need a PhD in Snef to figure out how this one goes. With no Devil Breakers left, and no phone or divinity statue in sight, we're forced to restart the mission, as we don't have any way of replenishing our stock. Okay, back at it with Gerber again. Why, you're asking? I figure I might as well show you the grounded breakage move while I'm at it. Gerber is really only good for breaking anyway. Stamen Ray is just what it looks like, a big ass beam that deals big ass damage.
Taste of the good shit!
But it leaves us open for a long time, so we need to be careful so we don't get hit during it, as this breaks the arm instantly. Helter Skelter brings our momentum up to pace again, which we maintain into the second fight. So it's a bit ironic that we managed to lose it from a falling pair of scissors from an enemy we just killed. The only standout thing about the third encounter is that we demonstrate that the battery permastun works against the Hell Antenors even while they're in Devil Trigger, but that's probably about as far as we can push it. Our next attempt in the big room goes a bit better, seeing as we have 6 breakers now instead of 2. That is, until we decide to ride Punchline again.
Come on! Hell yeah!
You see, when riding it, you can press a couple of different buttons to do different tricks. And one of these tricks just happens to be bound to the same fucking button that Blue Rose is, causing my peanut-sized brain to misclick it as I jump off Punchline to reset its duration. Meaning we have to use a checkpoint again. Our next attempt doesn't make it much farther, as I accidentally use some summon source by pressing one of the trick buttons while in Devil Trigger. The same button we misclicked Blue Rose with earlier, incidentally. After this mission, we won't be seeing Punchline much, if at all, and I hope you can understand why. That's why I pick up this bad boy for what is our 5th attempt, is it? and this is only mission 3. The Mega Buster is the first DLC breaker we have seen so far in this run. Pressing the style button while standing still causes Neo to shoot the nearest enemy, and using it while moving instead shoots in the direction we're facing. The damage of the shot depends on how long we waited between firing, dealing between average and minuscule damage. The Mega Buster is nothing to write home about, but I'm very tired of punchline at this point, so literally anything else will do. Like Overture, it's at least decent at stunning enemies, for what it's worth. Back to the bar again. Here we can see what is probably the biggest issue with the Mega Buster, and that is handling multiple enemies at once, as it can only target one enemy at a time. Its breakage move mitigates this a little bit, but since you can only use it once, I'm not sure it counts. This time we managed to get through punchline without fucking up, meaning we actually cleared the encounter. Which is basically only Hellcanis, by the way. Possibly the easiest enemy in the entire game. This is gonna be a long run, isn't it? Thankfully, we can now farm some Devil Trigger and restock our breakers before heading to the first real boss of this challenge, Goliath. Courtesy of Goliath's massive hitbox, this fight is fairly easy, even when limiting ourselves to only using Devil Breakers. This is because we can easily just use enemy step on him, positioning ourselves so we don't get hit by his attacks. Overture is once again the key player here, as it deals the most amount of consistent damage out of all the Devil Breakers available to us. Not only does it deal significant damage, it also deals said damage fast, which comes in handy against quicker enemies. So we have an easy boss and a great Devil Breaker in our hands, which means Goliath should just put the fries in the bag at this point, right? Well, not exactly. If there are two things you can always count on me doing, it is getting hit by the Helljudeca's spinning attack, and clutching defeat from the jaws of victory. By disrespecting Goliath, I get hit by what is his most telegraphed move using battery, causing one of my remaining overtures to break. After that, I decide it's a great idea to blow my third to last one, by using his breakage move after Goliath has used Devil Trigger. Meaning not only do I lose the breaker, it also doesn't deal much damage at all. To make matters even better, the next breaker in my stock is Tomboy, meaning I have to immediately break this one as well. This means we have one Overture and about 20% HP left to our name, which our odds I don't like. This time we at least make it work, forcing Goliath to send in his McDonald's application once and for all. Though I will admit we were a bit too close to starting our own fast food career here, which goes to show we need to be mindful of how we spend our resources in this run, since the Devil Breakers we have are finite. Mission 3 might only be the third mission of the game. Duh. But don't let that fool you. It does actually contain a few fairly difficult fights. The first two fights on top of the sunken buildings are nothing all too special though. But I decided to take them on using Rawhide. Which makes sense, right? Mostly weak enemies, scattered in a fairly small arena. Sounds like the perfect matchup for an area of effect breaker like Rawhide. While it is one of the most reliable breakers in the game, the damage output of Rawhide simply can't compete with the likes of Overture, meaning these two fights take a long time. Okay, finally. How long did that take? It's already May? Jesus. Why can't I leave yet? Where's the last guy? Oh, there he is. We also find an uncollected gold orb, better save that one for later. Other than that, we swing around a bit using these things until we find our greatest hurdle yet. Oh shit. This is probably gonna be an issue, huh? Turns out you can't complete the game without ever using Blue Rose, as it's mandatory to pass this obstacle. Unlike the things we just swung across, these guys won't unlock until we shoot them, meaning we're stuck here, unable to swing to the other side. So for this occasion, I'll make an amendment to the rules, allowing us to use Blue Rose only to shoot these things. I hope you guys can forgive me for this massive betrayal. Once we're in the sewers, most of the enemies are actually skippable, meaning we can just run past them and destroy one of the two Clypha fruits blocking our way. The second route is located in this room, which just so happens to be one of the hardest fights in the entire game. Why that is, I don't know, because the assortment of enemies should not be as hard as they are here. It might have something to do with all the explosives lying around, as we immediately cause a lizard to use Devil Trigger by removing it from the field. We're then promptly cut into fine slices of bacon, before getting sent to meet our maker from a nearby Lusace explosion, bringing our death count up to 2. This is a bit annoying, but at least we got a few breakers left to our name, so we should still be fine here. As I'm not confident that Rawhide can stagger these guys once they use Devil Trigger, I decide to break it pretty much immediately, dunking the Lusace straight into the explosive barrel from before. After absolutely whiffing the breakage move with Mega Buster, we're left with 2 Devil Breakers. Oh my god, this hurts to watch. I didn't think dropping the ball that hard was possible after all the practice we had during Mission 2, but here we are. I guess we gotta hand it to the lizards this time, as this forces the second mission restart of this run. We breeze through the first 2 encounters using Overture this time. Well, at least for a little bit, as we make our way back to the lizards, which is where some underhanded tactics start. Somehow, I didn't even notice I used Snatch illegally here, meaning I must either have been very frustrated or very tired when replaying this fight. This also means I continue playing from here, killing the Death Sisters in the next room, and eventually making my way to the next boss of this challenge, Artemis. This is a bit problematic, since I got a new checkpoint from clearing the next fight, which we, spoiler alert, use when we fight Artemis. I don't want to let this one slide, but I also don't want to throw away all of those attempts. So as a compromise, I'll be adding a rule break to the counter, and then we continue on from here, after which I'll be replaying the entire mission from the start again. That way we all win, I think. So, anyway, Artemis. Artemis is a fast flying demon that specializes in shooting shit at you from way over there. I decide that my opening move is going to be haphazardly sticking a bunch of overtures into her, which I get punished for instantly. We're forced to expend our tomboy next, for very disappointing results. But most embarrassing is probably what comes next. After finally managing to knock her out of the sky, we're presented with a unique opportunity. You see, while Nero can use his buster attacks pretty much anytime he wants against weaker enemies, larger enemies and bosses need to be staggered first to be susceptible to the attack, which is exactly what's happening here. I don't react quickly enough to this, though, as I manage to get hit by a shot from her flying things, causing my current overture to break. This in turn means I don't have enough time to use the breakage move of both the next overture and Buster Arm, causing me to miss the window of opportunity to use Buster on her. Like I explained, Buster Arm is pretty much useless unless Artemis is staggered, and since we can't stagger her using Buster Arm, well, unless we don't want to dive kick her 200 times, we're forced to break this arm as well. So now we're stuck with 2 Devil Breakers, while Artemis sits at a comfy 75% HP. Let me spare you statisticians some time by just telling you how this run went. For our next attempt, I decide to front-load Buster Arm instead. If we can score a quick knockdown using our first 2 overtures, we can deal significant damage to her, without expending too much of our stock in the process. Well, what the game plan is, and how the game is played, are 2 very different things. By using the breakage moves of my overtures way too early, we miss our chance to use Buster Arm. Again. In the opposite way this time, at least. Gotta keep you guessing. We sink the Hindenburg again, which I somehow managed to mess up even more by thinking it's a good idea to use the slowest fucking move in the entire game in a time-sensitive window. And surprise surprise, this leaves us with a worthless Buster Arm. Again. Meaning we're stuck with 2 Devil Breakers, when Artemis has about 75% HP left. Again. To make matters even worse, she decides to use Devil Trigger very early. Which is practically a guaranteed loss for us, because God knows I won't be able to hit her enough times without breaking this poor overture. This brings about our first non-rule break checkpoint use of this run. One slight loadout change I'm making for attempt number 3 is front-loading Buster Arm even more, now putting it in the second slot. This is both to make sure I don't feel tempted to use Overture's breakage move, but also so I don't have to waste so many breakages if I manage to mess up the first knockdown. This minor touch-up works in our favor, since we're able to pull off the first boss buster attack of this run. This is also a rule break if you're paying close attention. You see, you can actually rev Red Queen when using this attack, which I often do out of habit. What I didn't realize is I was pressing the shoot button at the same time, meaning we accidentally diced her a few times for good measure here. Like Like I said earlier, I'll be adding another rule break for this one, and we'll continue on from here. What this actually demonstrates though, is that Buster Arm has an extremely high damage output against bosses, which is something we need to take advantage of as often as we can. Other than that, we get really close to finishing her off this time, but we fall just a bit short at the end, losing our final Devil Breaker a bit too far away from drop kicking range. For attempt number 4, we use the same strategy again, though I don't quite manage to pull the Buster attack off in time for the first knockdown, as we get hit just as she falls. This isn't even necessarily a bad thing here, as keeping our first Overture really paid off in this case, letting us kill her small things quickly. We also get to see her shouting attack for once, which she only uses if you deal enough damage to her in a short time frame, meaning our pacing is great. That is about where the good things end for this attempt, unfortunately. As she prepares her ultimate attack, I manage to fuck up one too many enemy steps, causing me to fall to the ground. I desperately try to incapacitate one of her floating things so I can pull myself towards her, to no avail, causing me to get blasted back to the Dark Ages where I truly belong. One thing leads to another and we succumb again, making it about as far as we did last time, but at least we have a strategy in place now. A strategy we cheat with, again. But at least we get hit by her super move again, as a tiny bit of karmic justice. Eventually leading to our death. For attempt number 6, we cheat again. Shocker, I know. With some fancy footwork, we do actually manage to cancel her ultimate attack, for what it's worth. We bring this momentum with us going forward, sacrificing an Overture to deal significant damage to Artemis. Momentum we then immediately lose after a series of unfortunate whiffs, causing us to have to restart yet again. Remember all those red orbs in my last video we said we were never gonna need? Yeah, turns out all these Overtures don't come for cheap. Or I mean, I guess they kinda do, but still. Another attempt, another Overture into Buster Arm combo. Another attempt, another super move cancel. Despite being a bit formulaic, this run is by far the cleanest one so far, especially when comparing the tempo. Though, like all bosses in Devil May Cry 5, the fight only truly starts once they use Devil Trigger. With a barrage of breakage moves at the end, we finally managed to kill Artemis, with a large asterisk attached to it. This means our death counter currently sits at 5, our checkpoint counter at 3, and our rule break counter at 7. So now we just have to play it all the way from the start again. Yay! Ugh. I start the mission off like most attempts so far, in the sunken city, straight up rawing it. And by it, well, let's just say, my hide. Come on, it wasn't that bad. Also, is it just me or did Rawhide just remove that fireball? That's a new one. Other than that, the outdoor encounters go by well, despite not using Overture all that much. But as we have noticed so far, the third mandatory fight is where the game really decides to up the ante. I start off by using the permastun technique to quickly finish off the Lusacha, and thankfully, the camera helps us out quite a bit here. What's annoying about the riots is that they often use Devil Trigger really early for some reason. The one I whack at the start of the fight uses Devil Trigger immediately, for example. This actually makes them a lot more dangerous than they seem, since their claw attacks and tail swipes knock off a large chunk of our health. Thankfully, I don't get hit too much. Okay, fight number 3 done without cheating, and the office supplies face their fate without much of a challenge either. This means we're finally back to Artemis for round 2. As I'm feeling a lot more confident this time around, I'm gonna switch up my strategy just a little bit. Instead of using as few Overtures as possible before busting her ass, that doesn't sound good, I decide to spend 2 of them on Exploder, dealing a bit more damage up front. Once she falls, it's business as usual. I use Exploder yet again and charge up the Buster Arm. This time without any summon swords, for the first time in this run. Yeah, not cheating. As we've now sapped her down to about 50% HP, she's probably gonna use her super attack. For once, I actually paid close attention to this, leading to yet another takedown. Unfortunately, Artemis decides to Devil Trigger really early, meaning the last 30% of her HP is going to take forever to shave off. After knocking her down one last time, and swatting her a bunch more than that, we managed to defeat Artemis, finally finishing mission 3.
Let's get airborne. Again? Oh, fine now.
Nero, did we beat Virgil? No, Dante, that was mission 3. Out of the frying pan, into the fire. In this mission, we're tasked with handling this little guy, Gilgamesh, while V plays with his pets in the sewers or whatever. I say fire, but this fight is neither that hard nor that interesting, in my opinion. So maybe it's more of a out of the fire into the frying pan kind of situation. To fry this fight down to its core, we need to whack his legs enough times to make the orange spots go blue, after which we can use Snatch to fling ourselves onto its back, where we can actually deal damage to it. Occasionally, he'll try to body slam us as we're tickling his ankles, which effectively produces the same results for us, so I don't mind. The longer you stay on its back, the more impatient it will get, sometimes making its back slippery, and sometimes shooting spikes out in an attempt to impale us. And that impatience is going to be a bit of an issue, because by the looks of Healthy Skelter's damage, this is gonna take a while. I'm not even sure it deals damage half the time. Alright, that's a bit better. Hold on, why can't I target the broken leg? Oh. I guess they were doing something, huh?
You didn't think you did that all by yourself, did ya?
You know, I bet you taste like chicken.
The opportunity presented by V and his uncooked friends gives us a large window to deal some fairly solid damage to Gilgamesh, dropping their health below half. After which we let loose a little bit with Tomboy. This is where the fight starts getting really interesting, as he sends out some flying copyright infringements that are just kind of there, not doing much. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is one of the reasons I don't like this fight all too much. After about 10 seconds, you've already seen everything there is to it. This leads to this fight feeling more like a slog than it actually is. A great strategy for making this fight go about a bit quicker is to get hit 3 times, ruining your final Devil Breakers. After which you get saved by a Mega Buster on the ground, which you also proceed to break. After searching for another second chance for a few minutes, I decided to kick it. Quite literally. Leading to our 6th death so far. Since Helter Skelter wasn't actually doing anything noteworthy here, I decided to switch him out for some good old overtures instead. This makes the early sections of the fight go about much smoother. After V and his crow workers break the floor again, we get another beautiful opportunity to deal some damage, knocking off about a quarter of Gilgamesh's health. We whack him, and whack him, until he finally shows off one of his rarer or controversial moves in his arsenal, killing the batteries in your controller. But that's no match for me. I eat batteries for breakfast. After my stylish double exploder fails to kill Gilgamesh, I get up close and personal, finishing the fight with a clean hit from our dropkick, which arguably looks cooler than the double exploder thing I was going for initially. This means we can finally move away from mission 6, with 6 deaths to our name. In Mission 7, Nero has to assist Nico in our unethical urban mining operation by first destroying the entire subway system underneath the city. But watch out, Nero, there are hordes of evil public servants standing in your way. If you can recall what I said about Gerber previously, you know, about it not being very good, then you might be a little bit surprised to see me pick it here. Believe it or not, Gerber is actually pretty good at the start of this mission. It's probably not better than Overture, but I figure it might be a little bit fun to show off. The first good matchup for Gerber here is the Death Scissors right at the start of the level, even though these are technically optional. The low ceiling, combined with the fact that the scissors fly, alongside Gerber's ability to propel itself upwards, means you can just endlessly jump cancel on them, killing them fairly quickly. Taking on the second one in this super tight space also makes for a great viewing experience. The second good matchup is a bit more debatable, but the spawner located in this hallway is also perfectly placed by its Clythoff route, meaning you can easily jump cancel Jockey here as well. I also tried to kill the butchers here using Gerber, which very much is not a great matchup. Luckily, I quickly realized this, hightailing it to the next encounter. You could probably cheese the spawner using Gerber here as well, if you angle yourself against this sign, but I lose Gerber before I can manage to test it. Like I mentioned during Mission 3, the riots are actually deceptively difficult to handle, as they once again use Devil Trigger extremely early. Not only does this mean a little more damage to us if we get hit, it also means they gain a ton of knockback resistance, which makes them harder to properly crowd control. Losing our Gerber, 3 of our Overtures, and a Tomboy for good measure. We manage to get out of this fight in one piece. As we make our way to the next mandatory encounter, we pick up a pair of Mega Busters along the way. These actually come in handy this time, as I managed to angle the breakage moves correctly twice to start off the fight. Despite the great start, I get a bit overwhelmed, which leads to our 7th demise so far. And since we're all out of breakers, this means we have to restart the mission as well. On the bright side, this means we get to watch Gerber do its thing again. Instead of trying to angle myself correctly when we get to the second spawn of this mission, I figured I might as well show you the perfect use case for pedalway. In a tight enclosure like this, the petals bounce all over the place, dealing a lot of damage. This setup is a lot better than what we had last time, so apart from an unlucky flesh wound at the end, we're looking stronger going into the next fight. But first, why not waste a perfectly good Devil Breaker against this electric mushroom, for no fucking reason whatsoever? Good thing we didn't almost do it twice at least. Despite that, the next fight is a clean display from us, as we managed to take down the Spawner, the Butchers, and the Hellcane, without sacrificing any of our breakers. This is also when I realized this fight isn't mandatory at all. You can just run past the roots after you kill the Spawner. I don't know why I thought it was, but hey, you learn something new every day. A fight that is actually mandatory, on the other hand, is the one right next to the escalators. Though this encounter isn't all that interesting, as we dispatch of all the bats, the Hellcanes, and the Butchers, using the trusty Overture permastun technique. After making our way up said escalators, we have another mandatory encounter on our hands, this one being a lot more difficult than the one we just crushed. Here we get the honor of having to kill 2 spawners, a bunch of fucking lizards, and a few Hellcanes. And let's sprinkle in a Death Scissor as well, a good measure, you know, why not? Like the true strategic genius I am, I immediately turn my attention to the first spawner, taking care of it fairly swiftly. Then, for the second spawner, why am I not going for the second spawner? Ooh, that thing stung. Yeah, exactly. So go for the second spawner now. Okay, nice, thank you. After killing the second spawner, we put the Death Scissors back in the pencil case for good, after which we can finally turn our attention to the riots. This is when... Why is the spawner still standing, dude? Are you serious? After a few too many close calls, we're finally granted some safety in the form of jump cancelling with Rawhide, allowing us to clear the encounter with a singular Devil Breaker left, along with a lot of anxiety about our health bar. As far as I know, there are no therapists around to fix the latter, but I know just the right person to fix the former.
You in a twist? Wow, did hell just freeze over?
That leaves only one thing left for this mission, the sliding arena with all the Angelos. My first thought for this fight was using a bunch of Helter Skelters, in order to break the shields of the Scuro Angelos a bit faster. But if it's one thing we can count on when it comes to Helter Skelter, it's that it always disappoints. Seeing as this is gonna take forever, I decide to break 2 of them using Drill Master, which does actually break a few shields, for what it's worth. What's nice about the Scuro Angelos is that Overture's permastun technique works beautifully, allowing us to knock them up after a single use of battery. This in turn means that we can stun several of them at the same time. One by one they drop, until there's only one left, the Proto-Angelo. This guy has a lot of health, meaning we're gonna need some serious damage to kill him. That's why I decided to sacrifice 2 Overtures in order to knock him down, after which we can safely use our Buster Arm to deal massive damage to him. After all that, he still has about a third of his health left, meaning this is gonna take a while. When dealing with situations where you potentially have to invest a lot of time to get back to the position you're currently in, it's always wise to take massive gambles. Like using the breakage move of 2 out of your 3 last Devil Breakers, for example. This may or may not have killed our pal V over there. But luckily, we ourselves are not punished for this, ending Mission 7 with the following stats to our name. But seriously, don't try this at home. Like so, we have officially entered the big leagues, as the upcoming missions are especially brutal. Mission 8 is no different, being one of the longest missions in the entire challenge, containing a bunch of mandatory encounters and some difficult enemy arrangements. This makes itself apparent very quickly, as the first encounter contains what is definitely our worst matchup in the entire game, the Fury. Most of you are probably painfully aware of what the Fury does, but for the uninitiated, the Fury is an enemy that teleports all over the place. Its main gimmick is that it's practically immune to damage until you parry one of its attacks. These attacks are very fast, meaning you have to preemptively attack if you want a chance to parry them. This is a bit of an issue for us, as even Overture has a slightly wonky hitbox and a wind-up animation, leading to many broken breakers. You could be a crazy motherfucker like me and parry it using Boost Knuckle. The problem with that is that it would take too long to actually kill it, giving the Fury a few too many chances at breaking our precious arms. So I've got another strategy in mind. Enter Ragtime. This is a devil breaker we haven't seen so far in this challenge, and for good reason. It doesn't deal any damage. What it does do is slow down time in a small area, causing enemies to move extremely slowly. Its breakage move, Slow World, pretty much does what the name implies. It slows down the entire world. We can then use this move as the Fury rises from the ground,
Take your time.
leading to us getting in a free hit that staggers it, in turn letting us use a powered up Buster Arm to deal insane damage to it. This is the combo in theory, at least. In practice, I completely forget that the Fury is not the only thing that spawns here. This is a bit of a problem because, like I said, Ragtime doesn't deal any damage. After coming to terms with the fact that this probably won't go my way, I accidentally shoot one of the butchers in the head, leading to our 9th rule break. With an Overture in our hands, we build up some Devil Trigger again and make our way back to the butchers. This time, I completely fuck up the timing instead, losing Ragtime and having to resort to using Devil Trigger to knock the Fury into the air. This does work, admittedly, and is technically legal according to the rules I've set for myself. Despite that, I couldn't shake the feeling of this outcome feeling a bit cheap, so I restart the mission to give my original strategy another shot. Which doesn't work out all too well. After giving the butcher some more CPR, it looks like 4th time's the charm, as we finally react quickly enough to the Fury spawning, correctly executing our triple breakage combo. The next mandatory encounter might look pretty easy, containing only 2 Baphomets and a Proto-Angelo. But as you saw in the last mission, killing Proto-Angelos is anything but fast. Losing all of our Devil Breakers when it's at a quarter HP doesn't really help. And what's even more disgraceful is that I can't even drop kick down from that range. I'm really washed, aren't I? Losing here unfortunately means we have to replay the entire level from the start again, giving me another chance to mess the Fury strategy up. Though we do get it on the second try. So we go for another ride on the elevator, followed by a less nice ride in the blood pipes, before we eventually make it back to the Proto-Angelo fight. This attempt goes a bit better, as we actually manage to kill the Proto-Angelo this time, by the skin of our teeth. I'm pretty sure you could finish the entire mission normally in the time it takes to kill these guys using only Devil Breakers, but I am handicapping myself a little bit here by not using Buster Arm, I guess. For reference, killing this guy took about 16 lashes from Rawhide and a whopping 57 batteries from Overture. Not all is bad though, as we're blessed with another Divinity statue, leading into the next mandatory fight. Before that, we can just use our triple jump to make our way across the falling platform section. What are we doing, Snef? Don't... Okay, so I guess we're doing this section now too. This platform right here is a bit of a recurring thing found in Devil May Cry games. Essentially, a lot of enemies will spawn on this platform, and if we kill them fast enough, we'll be rewarded with a blue orb fragment or something. I don't really remember. But if we're too slow, the platform will instead break, causing us to drop down into an optional encounter we can't flee from. Seeing as Rawhide is not nearly strong enough to quickly dispatch these guys, the platform breaks pretty much immediately. This is then followed by what is probably my most pathetic attempt to kill a behemoth of my entire career. Or my most pathetic attempt so far. Even though it kinda hurts my pride, it's probably better to just skip this one. The next fight features a bunch of Baphomets again, along with a nobody, for good measure. The flying goats stand no chance in the presence of a true goat, and after using enough battery to charge an entire fleet of Teslas, the nobody disintegrates as well. After all that remains of Mission 8 is to put our hoodie on, chew 5 gum, and wait for Nico to show up so we can replenish our Devil Breakers. Ah yeah, we also need to beat this guy. The only requisites for beating sitting Urizen here is to break his crystal and land a single hit on him. Not too difficult, but a bit easier said than done. Helter Skelter has a great matchup here, as it deals a lot of damage to the crystal in particular. So it's a good thing that I only brought one, and that I broke it immediately. Luckily, we still got some overtures in the back, and you can never go wrong with that, right? After a few more close calls, we finally managed to break the crystal, zapping him out of his chair. Seems like Urizen was a bit pissed off by that, as we enter the second phase of the fight. And I know what you're thinking. Snef, how the fuck are you supposed to beat Urizen again with that health bar? Don't worry, I've got a plan. And that plan is giving up completely. The good thing about this fight is that you're not actually supposed to beat Urizen. Getting defeated here simply allows us to proceed to the next mission. It does, however, still add a death to the counter, just like in the prologue. You know, after a few tough missions in a row, I think we've deserved to take a little break here. Time to let loose and party a bit with our friends in Mission 13. This mission is always a banger. It consists of 3 different layers, each containing a bunch of spawners and fun enemy types, meaning it's pretty much an endless gauntlet of fighting. The only thing setting this mission back a bit is the starting fight with the Lusacha, which is not very interesting. But that's a small price to pay for what's about to come next. Though I think I might have arrived a bit late here, since the spawner drops fairly quickly. I guess using Rawhide in the previous fight might not have been the best idea. For the next floor, I jam one of my overtures into the spawner right here, letting me vibe a bit with Punchline instead. Always a great plan. Other than that, me and Dante make quick work of the spawners, making our way down to the next and final floor that contains a bunch of butchers and even more spinning lizards. Things get goofy real quick. I even decided to use Gerbera for a bit before realizing that was a mistake. As always. And just look at this overture juggle. Amazing. And just like that, Dante and I performed the prettiest synchronized jump of all time, officially ending Mission 13. How did you get here, V? You did nothing this entire time and now you tried to claim all the honor, huh? I guess we should have left you in Mission 8. Wait. So there was a V here? Where was he the entire time?
Damn it. Running a little low. Not gonna last much longer without a refill.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's how I've been feeling for the entire game. Mission 15 is probably the hardest regular mission of this challenge. It's very long, the fights are difficult, especially the one at the end, and it also has a boss fight. It doesn't help that it's also confusing layout-wise, so prepare to get lost. At the start of the mission, there are like 2 or 3 different paths for us to choose from, each containing different challenges and encounters. I decided to go with the bottom path. Not for any particular reason, mind you. I simply don't remember the differences. A more serious guy would probably give you a detailed rundown for each here, but you already knew what you signed up for. At least this path got some bats for us to stack Devil Trigger on. God damn it. Okay, last jump. Come on. Oh, never mind. That wasn't too bad. So far so good. If you can call 1666 style points good, that is. The first mandatory fight is not too bad, containing just a few enemies. But our old nemesis, Punchline, decides to cut the attempt extremely short, as I get hit while using it, breaking it, after which I immediately shoot one of these guys with blue rose. I thought about restarting the mission here, but since we only lost one breaker it shouldn't be all too bad. Well, that was anticlimactic. At least we don't have to skip the cutscene, I guess. The next attempt goes a lot better. I do wonder why. A strange thing about this mission is that we get to restock all of our breakers after a single fight. I couldn't tell you why, but I'm not complaining. Nope. Nope. Scattered throughout the mission you'll find these guys standing guard. It would be a real shame if someone came along and just jumped over them.
What'd you say?
Oh come on man, I was just playing. The next mandatory fight of this mission pits us against two behemoths at the same time. This is a real crock of shit, let me tell you that much. I gotta say though, this is probably our most honest punchline fight so far. It's a shame it always ends the same way. After losing punchline, I bring out what can only be described as my B game, as I managed to lose 60% of my HP and 2 double breakers in a matter of seconds. Eventually, this brings about our 11th death so far, just as my graphics card decides to give up as well. You know what? I think we could use a little warm-up.
Not bad, eh? Sassy!
This fight has to go better now that we're back in the groove, right? Nope. No, absolutely not. Wait, we actually lived that. That's crazy. Next up on the strategy chopping block is the double Helter-Skelter whammy. In theory, this should be good for breaking their chains at least, as Helter-Skelter deals increased damage to... Wait, what the fuck? It just breaks it in one hit. Okay, okay, no it doesn't. Seems like this was the way to go regardless. When the behemoth gets unbound, it becomes a lot more aggressive and starts attacking sporadically. This might sound really dangerous, which it is, but its attack also deals collateral damage to other demons. So because we broke their chains early, they actually rack up a fair bit of damage on each other here, making our job a little bit easier. Next up is the final mandatory fight of this mission, as well as for the entire game for that matter. And of course, we have to send it off with a Heljudeca. At least we get to restock before taking it on.
That's awfully generous.
When you run into the room after the divinity statue, you're greeted by a pair of Hellentenoras and a Lusatia. This is not the mandatory fight I was talking about. But like the strategic mastermind I am, I decided to take them on regardless, in order to get some health and devil trigger back. And not because I thought this fight was mandatory due to the Lusatia spawn covering the door or anything. For the actual fight, my main strategy is to get rid of the small guys early, by bringing them out of the Heljudeca's reach, which actually starts off really well. Unfortunately, I kinda blew it immediately after that by getting hit during both breakage moves. My plan for dealing with the Heljudeca is to use Exploder on it, from which I can then use a powered up Buster on to finish it off immediately.
How do you like this? How do you like this? Happy birthday! Now make a wish!
Like I said in Mission 3, it's called a plan for a reason. They don't always pan out. Despite fighting valiantly for another 2 minutes, we find ourselves bested once again, upping the death counter to 13. I think we're gonna run it back though. I feel like the idea was alright, but my execution was a bit sketchy. As usual. This time, we even managed to bring the Heljudeca along with us to heaven. Even if just for a little bit. Unfortunately, I may or may not have gotten a bit too comfortable when fighting this little guy, causing my Overture to get sniped again. And the same goes for my Buster on. After a whole lot of swatting, and a really close call towards the end, we bid adieu to the normal enemies for the remainder of this challenge, as only 2 bosses stand in our path now. The first of the last bosses is none other than Malphas. Malphas is basically a bunch of ladies glued to a large disgusting chicken, so a bit like the chicken jockey from Minecraft in a sense. Also, just between you and me, I wrote this joke about maybe 2 or 3 months before the Minecraft movie came out, so don't judge me too much. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here, as we have a more pressing issue at hand. Our health bar. Considering how many times I've died, and how many times I've been hit stupidly so far, starting a boss fight off with this amount of health is bound to go badly. A real pussy would probably go to the Steam store and buy a new devil break we haven't seen before. Sweet Surrender. The breakage move of Sweet Surrender, named Sweet Release, would then in theory be used. The description of which states, and I quote, "Jerk Sweet Surrender off your arm for an explosion of healing energy. Restores vitality in an instant, but blowing the hole out at once destroys the arm." This would theoretically restore a lot of their health, which would make the fight a whole lot easier. This would, in theory of course, end with the pussy losing the attempt to a rule break they didn't even know existed.
Chicky? How dare you! What's the matter? Not into getting tied up?
Why is there so much sex stuff? Like I said, all in theory, I would never stoop so low. Which is why we're going into this without any protection.
I'm coming.
I really don't like that I can't skip the cutscene before she says that. The strategy I'm going for here is fairly similar to the one we used against Artemis in Mission 3. Using Overture until we get an opportunity to use our Buster Arm. This doesn't go so well the first time. Turns out this fight is a bit more challenging than I remembered. Her movement, alongside the spikes she fires on the ground, makes it a bit difficult to land battery hits on her. Once we finally knock her down, we get impaled by a spike launched barely from within our camera's reach, leading to our third failure here so far.
I'm coming.
Our fourth attempt goes just as well, as I decide to use 2 exploders in order to bring her down to the ground. This is very stupid, mostly because I don't even think that's enough damage to bring her into range, but it's also stupid since I think this little cutscene with V actually removed the second exploder from her, which is bullshit. Though I don't think it would have mattered regardless, realistically.
I'm coming.
Attempt number 5 goes about as well as number 4 did, even if we were a bit unlucky this time. Can't really say the same about attempt number 6 though.
I'm coming.
You know, when I first got hit by this attack and triggered the V cutscene, I thought I had encountered a bug, but it turns out we really are still alive here, which is kinda crazy. Doesn't last for long though. But it's insane how many close calls we've had so far in this challenge, now that I think about it. As attempt number 8 leads nearer to yet another premature death by chicken, I feel as though I might be in over my head here. The amount of health we start with is really low, and while I can regenerate some of it using Devil Trigger, I'm realistically not going to be able to regenerate enough to take more than 1 or 2 hits here. And that's only before she uses Devil Trigger herself. This means I have to be extremely mindful of how I position myself, not only so I don't get hit, but also to deal the most amount of damage possible. You see, if I use battery from just the right angle, it can potentially deal a lot more damage. I think this depends on if I hit the chicken as well as the jockeys on top of it, and the state the chicken is currently in. Doing this not only increases our damage output, but the rate we knock her down as well. We get really lucky once again, using the perfect amount of Devil Trigger to survive getting chipped by one sauced up dash. Where the fuck are you going? Now that we're literally one hit away from death, what I said before goes doubly true. Which means it's time to lock in for real. When the chicken gets greasy, it also gets a lot more aggressive. Unless you're right next to Malphas when they do this, trying to punish them is way too dangerous. So it's much safer to just weather the storm by using a triple jump and air taunt to stay way above our lethal range. Playing it safe leads to yet another takedown, where we can really see how much the angle of battery matters when it comes to dealing damage to them. After dodging a few pecks and spikes, we get hit again. Very luckily not by anything lethal, though I am starting to worry a bit about her health, as she might decide to use Devil Trigger early if we don't get another good opportunity to punish her. With yet another stroke of good luck, we find another takedown, letting us finally show off Nero's Buster move against Malphas as we cycle to Buster Arm.
Killing me!
Ideally I should have done this sooner, as using it now causes some damage to be blocked by our Devil Trigger. But hey, at least we got it off this time. It's easy to think that since Malphas is down to an eighth of her HP, we should be about 7/8 through the battle. But since her Devil Trigger massively reduces the damage we deal to her, as we can see here, we still have a long way to go. After yet another drop down, disaster nearly strikes. I'm not sure how we managed to survive that, nor the charge right after for that matter. But I'm not complaining. The end of this fight is just an endless barrage of attacks, be it spikes, picks or dashes. Somehow we managed to survive a whole bunch of shit.
Let's get airborne. Riding high. Let's get airborne.
Before finally managing to charge her up one last time, officially beating mission 15. That was a really long one too, wasn't it? This is it, the final mission. There really is no better way to send a challenge like this off than by having to defeat Virgil with a newfound arm we can't use. To make this even more poetic, we start mission 20 at 20 deaths. Feels like I've heard that one before. What sets Virgil apart from other bosses in this game is how you punish him. Most bosses just let you wail at him whenever, even if some situations may be less optimal than others. Virgil straight up blocks most attacks you throw at him, unless he's currently attacking himself, or sheathing his sword. Since we can't really use any movement techniques here, as Snatch is also blocked by him, we have to stick close and hit him fast. That's the reason I decided to go with Rawhide here, as he's easily the fastest, usable level breaker. But it also has a fairly big caveat. So let's just swap to Overture instead, shall we? Overture deals significantly more damage than Rawhide, but I can only get maybe 1 or 2 hits in on him before it recovers again, meaning our real damage output is not that much higher. By heavily overestimating how much of a beating my Devil Breakers can take, I managed to break my arm before being able to use Bostron's breakage move. Sounds familiar? Well, we couldn't stab him this time, some Overture juggling can still go a long way. After some stylish dodging and smart punishes, Virgil takes a knee once again, after which the usual suspect appears, the doppelganger.
Relying on numbers won't do you any good.
I feel like I'm running out of ways to introduce this guy, so all you need to know is that he's another Virgil with less health, basically. If you're a returning viewer, then you know how this is about to go.
Oh, fuck.
Or do you? While the doppelganger is notoriously hard to hit, it seems like one battery actually does him in, which spells great news for us. Less great is that we lose another Overture, but at least it was just in time to remove the summon swords from us. Taking one too many hits here and there eventually leads to our 21st death. It might seem like we got pretty far here, but take another look at the self bar. We still have a long way to go before we can call this a good attempt. But now we know what we're up against, so the second attempt will probably yield better results. If we actually started the fight off with any breakers, that is. For our third attempt, I decided to lead off with Punchline instead, to mixed results. It does make juggling him easier, but it doesn't juggle him for too long and it deals pitiful damage. At least it leads to a quick knockdown, where we can finally see how useful Bostron really is.
Fuck you! Take me seriously now?
If we actually want to defeat Virgil, this double breaker is the key. But if you want to take this challenge on yourself, then I recommend that you actually hit Virgil a bit more before using it than I do here, as he's knocked down for a long time. What's even more annoying than the doppelganger itself is how early Virgil uses it here. During mission 19, he first uses it during his second use of Devil Trigger. But here he uses it when the Devil triggers the first time. Makes sense story-wise, but it's really annoying for me to deal with. Another thing that's hard to deal with are the summon swords when using Overture, as it doesn't break all of them at once, and the last ones are subsequently very difficult to hit. This causes me to go down to my last breaker, when Virgil still has 3/4 of his health left. This is not a recipe for success, let me tell you that much. Against my better judgment, I chose to go with Punchline again. Though I guess it isn't Punchline's fault I got way too close before dealing any damage to him. This causes us to miss our opportunity to use Bostron again, which is detrimental to our damage output. Despite the minor mishap, this is the attempt where my neurons actually start to activate, making me realize I should use Devil Trigger before using Battery. Since dodging replenishes so much of it anyway. Because Virgil decided to not use his own Devil Trigger for whatever reason, we actually bring him down to about 50% HP before he summons the doppelganger for the first time, who we managed to get rid of fairly easily. After getting way too ahead of myself, all of that progress is instantly flushed down the toilet, as I find myself at no HP with only 3 breakers left. I thought that maybe, just maybe, Punchline could put in some work by homing in on the doppelganger, letting me kill it without getting close. Turns out that not only does Punchline lose track of it after it teleports, it's also really hard to make it target who you want to target, meaning it flies after Virgil half the time instead. I really wanted to make it work here, but I guess it's just not meant to be. My refusal to accept that this is pretty much an Overture only challenge at this point continues into attempt number 5, where I bust out Rawhide again. Rawhide isn't awful, I guess, but we could really use some more firepower here. I also decide to bring this fucking thing, Ragtime. If we stop time, we might be able to... Never mind. Okay, round 2 you fuck... I'm not gonna lie, I don't think Ragtime is the strat here. I say as I get slashed into a million pieces using Overture. Attempt number 6 doesn't get us very far either, as we don't even manage to land a single hit on him before I quit out of frustration. And honestly, who wouldn't quit after getting hit by the most obvious attack in the entire game?
Here comes Buster off. Nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with me.
Did you see that? I just got an idea. If we position ourselves below Virgil as he uses the upper slash thing, we can use battery straight upward, letting us hit him at least one more time for free. Hey, it's not much, but I'll take what I can get here. We have also slightly improved our knockdown game, as I at least use Exploder while he's down. Again, you have a big window of opportunity here, so you better take better advantage of it than I do if you're gonna try this for yourself.
Oh hell no. Here, now sorry.
Why is he sliding away? If you know me, you know I'm still on that Ragtime bullshit. So let me show you another reason for why this doesn't work. Here I actually managed to use Slow Whirl, but battery doesn't deal any damage to the doppelganger. Why is that? You see, I managed to use the move just as he teleported away, meaning he's frozen in an iframe. Just another reason to not pick Ragtime in this fight, even though it doesn't sound useless on paper. At least it didn't happen 2 times back to back. Something I picked up is that you have just enough time to use battery when it stops in midair to use his judgment cuts, with a cute little jump to finish it off. And as another tip from me to you, don't use Exploder when it's about to fly away. Apparently it doesn't deal any damage at all if you do. Or does it? Unfortunately, our shenanigans can only get us so far before being put in the grave for the 23rd time. But at least this is the furthest we've gotten. Attempt... what are we even on now? 7? Is where the magic truly starts. We open up with an absolute banger. Get it? Trading 3 double breakers for about 40% of Virgil's HP. We then follow it up with Ragtime Slow Whirl, instantly killing the doppelganger. God damn it. Cut the music. Just like that, we're stuck with 2 breakers now instead. I also get hit not once, but 2 times by its charge. And I still don't die, somehow. That's pretty impressive. But we still die again. By this point, we have pretty much solidified our opening. Whack him a bit using Overture, then use 2 exploders into the Buster Arm finisher to deal massive damage. After this though, I decided to get a bit groovy using Punchline, for literally no reason. This doesn't go too terribly, all things considered, but it does take a really long time doing it this way. What the fuck is going on my screen? After desperately trying to get rid of this thing for about 35 minutes, I noticed something. The doppelganger just disappeared on its own. I didn't have to do any of this. 2 untimely stuns, and a desperate kick at the end. Unfortunately spells the end for attempt number 8. But the harsh truth is that I'm not going to be able to beat Virgil if I continue playing like this. Feeling a bit worn out after attempt number 8, I actually went to bed to get some rest. And the results really show, as I positioned myself very well at the start of the fight. This leads to some nice upward angled batteries, as well as a few touch and goes. I even use Overture 1 extra time before jamming it into Virgil when he goes down. Impressive, I know. But the cleanliness doesn't stop there, as we manage to kill a doppelganger in a matter of seconds. Not once, but 2 times in a row. This is of course purely skill based. Unfortunately, I kinda ran out of steam towards the middle here, getting slashed a few times as well as getting stunned. Luckily for us, the stun is not that difficult to break as Nero, And even more luckily, the doppelganger he summons right afterwards is immediately recalled by his dash attack. After I get hit by a rogue judgment cut, our health is starting to get a bit too low for my liking. It's a shame I didn't bring any of these guys here, right? They probably would deal comparable damage to Punchline. By taking advantage of his long ass slashing move, we managed to topple him over. My use of Overture here is a bit scuffed, since we want to launch him into the air, not backwards. You also don't want to use it as fast as I'm doing here, as it did significantly reduce damage that way. The fourth doppelganger he summons is a bit more of a hassle for us, forcing me to dodge for my life until getting saved by the bell again. It turns out just doing nothing is a lot easier than trying to kill it. Who would have thought? It's a bit difficult to break all of the summon swords using Overture, but as long as we skillfully press the A button a bunch of times, we should be alright. Someone who's not entirely alright is Virgil, as we brought him down to the phase where he starts to block if we hit him enough. This is where my accolades for Overture stop, as it actually isn't powerful enough to break it here. Which is a bit surprising. Hefty Skeleton might be able to do the trick here, but I sure as shit ain't bringing one just for this. We're desperately out of sync for the fifth doppelganger as well. But once again he's not here for too long. Admittedly I've gotten a bit lucky with these guys so far, but in my defense I actually killed two of them fair and square. As he shows off his cool new moves, we once again find ourselves an opening to inflict a lot of damage on, which I kinda mess up by being a bit too overeager with my batteries. Another greedy use of battery costs us one of our precious breakers, even if using DT almost saved it. Gerber is about as useful as ever here, meaning we're officially down to just 2 devil breakers in a blink of an eye. The doppelganger almost makes that 1, but we managed to scrape by the skin of our teeth using DT. We get a bit lucky once again, with him recalling the doppelganger by using his super move. But we also get some karmic justice sent our way, as I just barely missed the window to punish him here. This is extremely unfortunate, as we probably could have killed him here. At this point, he starts to use what is probably his most frustrating strategy. If we're not careful, this is pretty much an insta-stun. He summons his doppelganger for the 7th time so far, which is fucking insane when you think about it, and this one is a dud for us as well. While it takes a long time to stall it out, we at least get to conserve some of our resources. Also, it looks like we wouldn't have been able to kill him here last time, as we just can't get past this block, which I completely forgot about. Another bullshit teleport nearly cost us a run. Holy shit. Not only that, I also panic and use a breakaway by mistake, leaving us with only a single devil breaker left, even though I had some devil tree to spare. I guess the true standoff starts now, huh? I'm not gonna contest this guy with 1 breaker, dude. That's not gonna happen. Let's just wait a little bit. Okay, okay. Okay, is that it? No, okay. Alright, it's okay. There we go. There we go. Okay. Okay, let's dance, fucker. Let's dance. Dude, are you serious? 1 hit? Okay. Okay, okay. Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? What is this game, dude? 1 hit again? What's going on? Okay, here it comes. Okay, okay, okay. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So close. Again, dude. Okay, yes, 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 yes. You're cooked, you're cooked, you're cooked, you're cooked. Yes! Oh my god, finally. That must have taken at least like 25 minutes.
You cut off your own son's arm for more power, and you still lost.
Damn straight, Dante. We don't need that fucking arm. Oh, that was a bit challenging. Let me tell you that much. After a grueling last few fights, we finally finished this challenge off, with a grand total of 25 deaths, 10 restarts, 4 checkpoint usages, and 10 rule breaks. I really hope you enjoyed this video, because not only was it hard to make, but the challenge itself was really difficult as well, especially if you compare it to the last challenge. On another note, I know that the wait between uploads have been a bit too long, so I'm working on getting the next one out a lot faster than this one. Once again, I'm not going to promise too much here, but I'm looking to cut down the length of these videos so they're a bit easier for me to make. Other than that, I'd love to hear what you think about this video in the comments, and if you're feeling really generous, you can leave a suggestion for another challenge as well. I'm always open to your ideas. Until next time, have a good one.
Come on. Go, baby, go!